Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. Today I'm here with my August wrap up. So all the books that I read in August. For some of them I've already done individual videos or will be doing individual review videos of them. So I will try to be brief on those and so that I can talk about more about some of the ones that I haven't talked before on the channel. So the first book that I finished in August was Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I'd actually read an early release, like advanced reader's copy via NetGalley, but I did go ahead and purchase my own copy of it, and the bookstore that I ordered it from was offering signed copies, so I just want to I got my book signed. But Velvet Was the Night, I did an individual review for that. I posted on the day the book came out. It's a fantastic story that begins with a student demonstration in Mexico City. One of the characters we follow is a thug that has been hired and trained to beat up student demonstrators. That's one of the perspectives that we follow in the story. The second perspective is this young Mexican woman who seems to be drifting. She's very unsatisfied with life. She's not political. She's not engaged with a lot of what's happening in her world with her co-workers. She doesn't have a ton of friends. She doesn't get along well with her family. And then one of her neighbors comes and knocks on her door, asks her to watch her cat while she's away. Great. Drama ensues, and it's set during student protests in the 1970s. If you want some of the historical background, that's a lot of what the video I did focuses on, but I really liked this. It's a noir, so the pacing is much slower. I need to warn people about that because if you like a lot of action, more of thriller aspects in these kinds of books, there are elements of that, but for a majority of the book you're just getting to know these two people and watching and seeing how their lives are going to interact in a very political setting. So that was the first book that I finished. The second book that I finished in August was The Famished Road by Okri. I just posted an individual review of this one on my channel if you want to go check it out. It is a Nigerian book in which you follow a spirit child. It's basically the spirit who had a pact with other spirits saying that they were never going to be born. So the pregnant person will go through the pregnancy with the spirit, but it will never actually be born, so there would be a miscarriage, a stillbirth, something like that, except that the spirit child we follow chooses to be born. And then we delve into, it's a lot of the real world, the physical world, the spiritual world, crossing those, the roads we're on. It's a fantastic Nigerian story, beautifully written. Yeah, if you were interested in more details, go check out my review of that because I really enjoyed The Famished Road, and I particularly loved buddy reading it with my friend, who I think just makes the reading experience so much better. So thank you, Yankee. The next book that I finished in August, I will have an individual review video of, and I will be posting it next week. So come back next Tuesday probably for a full, more in-depth review of The Return of the Sorceress by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. So this is a book that had a very limited printing. The publisher, Subterranean Press. Subterranean Press only printed 100 copies of it. So when you, 1,000 copies of it. So when you order your copy of it, it comes numbered and signed by the author. So it's a very short novella in which you pick up the story that's already, it's already in the middle of a ton of action. You're following the sorceress who was the leader of the Sorceress Guild. Her power is taken away by her former lover, and now he's chasing her so that she can't come back and challenge his authority. In the process of running away from him, our sorceress has to face up to her past and the actions she took to get to the place where she was at. It really is a novella that packs a lot of themes. I really enjoyed it. I tend to not do so well with novellas a lot of the time because the pacing and the length can be off for me. I was pretty well satisfied with this one. I did feel like I would have liked more on this world, but I love the way Silvia Moreno-Garcia writes female characters, and you have some like Mesoamerican, the use of Mesoamerican traditions in here that are really interesting. So yeah, I really like that one. The next book that I'm going to talk about is a book that you'll hear me talk about several times on my channel, but it might be a little while until I talk about it, because one of my goals for the year was to read a chunk of books about 1968 in Mexico. This is one of the ones that I picked up. Well, I suppose right after Velvet Was the Night. This is a book written by somebody who was there, who was an active participant in the student protest in the year 1968 in Mexico, beyond as well. But this particular book focuses on his experience of what it was like to be there in the student protest. It is 68, and I read it in Spanish. So the title in Spanish is El otono mexicano de la masacre de Tlatelolco by Paco Ignacio Taibo II. I will leave a link where you can find this book in English as well, because you can't find it in English. So it's a first-hand account, and it's just so wonderful. Like, he gives you a strong sense of what it was like as the movement, the student and worker movement builds up, and that there is a real chance and possibility for real change to happen in this moment, and then the way in which those hopes are squashed. I would absolutely assign this book, and actually I am already thinking of ways that I will be assigning this in my courses and using it, because it is just such a fantastic first-hand account. But that was that, and then I picked up Warrior's Woman by Johanna Lindsey. Fortunately, Cousin and Shannon, their channels, I'll link their channels down below, saw that I was taking a look at this book and warned me that this is an old school romance. So it's rapey. I feel like there are now classifications of how old school romances deal with consent, because I'm currently reading a book where it's just explicitly like it's rape. There's no attempt to create any gray areas in it. But this one has an attempt at that. The hero is one of these alpha holes that you don't really like for a chunk of the time. I gave this still a good rating because it's the world building. This is one of the first sci-fi romances written, and the world that is built with a lot of the side characters is fantastic. The problem for a modern reader is that the planet that the hero and the heroine are in for a majority of the plot is a very misogynistic planet. And so you're sitting there and you're like, you want her to do what? No. She's not about to do that. And really frustrating at times with some of the ideas. And like, to a modern reader, like, no, like, what are you thinking? So I would not recommend this book if you are new to romance. Please don't start with these old school romances. They will turn you off of the genre because they're bad. They lack consent. They have interesting elements sometimes. It might even be well written, but they engage in a world in which the assumption or the starting point is still heavily misogynistic and very anti-woman. And those themes are definitely in Warrior's Woman. Look at the cover though. The old school romances are really something too. Okay, the next book I finished was Love Among the Chickens by P.J. Wodehouse, I think. I loved this novella. I loved it. It's about this British man whose friend comes to visit and has a plan to put together a chicken farm. And the friend's like, how hard can it be? You know about chickens, right? You could help me. And our main character's like, I don't know anything about chickens, but okay, let's all go to the country, to the countryside and start a chicken farm. There is a romantic storyline there, and I just thought this was the humor. It was just so fun and cute, and part of me wanted to start my own chicken farm. Like, it's ridiculous. This premise is ridiculous, and it has fun with a ridiculous premise, which was exactly what I needed at this point in the month of August. So I was just very grateful. The next book that I finished was for my book club. The group chose The Wonder Test by Michelle Richmond, and this is a thriller in which you have an FBI agent who has become a widower. She's become a widow, and she's also lost her father, and so she is now going to this suburban town to take care of her dad's house and all his possessions. So she enrolls her son in the local school. It's supposed to be a really great school district, except this school district is obsessed with this standardized test that really dictates the future for their students and has helped give this school a really good reputation for having the most elite students. Then the FBI agent starts hearing about missing students. 2 years before, there was a student that went missing and then came back and they haven't been able to figure out what happened to the student, but the student was clearly traumatized. And then the year after that, another student just disappeared. And now it seems like the girl her son is dating has disappeared. It's a thriller, kind of one of these suburban stories. If you don't pay too close attention, this can be a really fun book. Like, I found myself sucked into the plot and missing all the holes. And once I finished the book and looked back at it and was discussing it with the book club, we were like, yeah, what about that thing? Oh, well. And wait a minute, that other thing doesn't quite make sense. All right. But at this point where I was in my reading time, I just surrendered to the plot, and it was a fun ride. So there you go. The next book I finished, though. Oh my goodness, the next book, everyone. This was my pick this month for Women in Translation Month. I got the recommendation from the Feminist Book Club. I will link there. It's a subscription box that also functions very much like a book club. So I'll link the information down below. But this is Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor and translated by Sophie Hughes. So this is written by a Mexican author. It's set in a remote Mexican village, which is also where my family comes from. My family comes from a remote Mexican village, except this is set in a different part. It's kind of, you don't know exactly where in Mexico this is set up, except that it's a remote village. And the premise is that a witch is found dead. She's found dead like on the river. And then every chapter is told from the perspective of a different person in the village that has valuable information to tell you about how we got to the point of a witch dead in the river. It's so incredibly powerful, beautiful, difficult to read. Like every single character in here is complex, where you find yourself not excusing the violence, but understanding where the characters are coming and what has led them to commit the violence, oftentimes brutal violence that they have committed. It is not an easy book to read. Tons of content warnings for homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, tons of macho culture elements in here. Um, Lots of physical violence, emotional violence, pedophilia, sexual assault. Like it is all in here, and and yet it's such a complex, beautiful story. The last perspective in particular was one that hit me really, like I have not gotten over it. I am pretty sure I have thought about this book every single day since I finished reading it. It is just that powerful. In the last perspective, music is very important, and there are songs in there that I have known for a long time. Like it feels like I've known them my whole life. That I've sung, that I've loved, and a couple of songs like I can never listen to again without thinking of this book. It's amazing. If you can handle the difficult themes, please pick up this book. I will need to do a dedicated review to this book because I really think that more people need to read it, and that a lot of people will enjoy it. It deals with such difficult subject matters that it's not a lot of enjoy, but will appreciate what the author is doing. Quick note: it's called hurricane season. There's no actual hurricane. The hurricane that is being referenced in the title refers to humans and the chaos that we create in life. But this is just beautiful. By the way, I love this book so much that I had gotten it from my library, and then went ahead and ordered it in English and in Spanish and I almost ordered it in French because the French cover is amazing. But yeah. Okay, second to last book that I finished in August was The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas. This is a YA horror book in which we follow Jake Livingston, who is a black kid in a largely white school. And that race plays a factor in his interaction with people around him, but he's also a medium. He sees and interacts sometimes with ghosts and with spirits. And at the time we enter the story, he has kind of accepted that this is what his life is, and he's trying to manage this medium aspect of himself, and he's doing an okay job of it. Not really, but he's moving along. And then there's a school shooting, not at his school, but in another school. And then the kid that lives across from him is murdered, and he sees ghosts, so he becomes involved. And that's all I can tell you. I think this book has so many interesting themes. I don't think it was 100% successful in everything it was trying to do, but I think this might actually be, if not a debut book, it's in one of the author's first books, because I could see the author trying to do a lot of really wonderful things, and some things I felt like, they didn't quite work for me, but they very nearly did. I hope that makes sense. Like, it wasn't 100% successful, but some of them were like 75-80% successful, and I just loved the project. I liked the intention, and I think the execution was very good. And I would definitely want to read more from this author at some point, because I just really, there was a lot of here to really enjoy. And then finally, the last book that I read in August, finished right in to get it into the wrap up, is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. So this is a book, a romance novel. My youngest sister actually made me read it. We're doing a kind of sibling book club, And this is the book she had as she chose. But the premise is that there's this Spanish woman living in New York, and she needs a date for her sister's wedding because her sister is marrying the brother of her ex, who she had a really bad breakup with. Like really, really bad breakup. Like she left Spain, bad breakup. She's not seeing someone though, and there's no one in her life she can take as her date. And she must take a date because the ex just announced that he's bringing his fiance with him to the wedding. So as she's talking to her co-worker about this dilemma of she needs a date, a different co-worker jumps in and says, hey, I'll be your date. Except she hates this guy, and this guy hates her. Why would she take him to Spain? It's a romance novel, so we know what's going to happen. But I was so delighted by this book. It's the hero is kind of cinnamon bunny. There's enough cinnamon bunny in there that I really loved it because I love cinnamon roll heroes. And our main character is smart, put together person. There's also, like, in the kind of situation that we have here, that there's a lot of miscommunication that could really go badly. Like, and I hate the miscommunication trope of, like, if the two of you just had one conversation, like, there would be no issue. So the premise is very much like a miscommunication plot, but the execution is fantastic. Like, characters actually talk to each other like adults. So it's that, like, fake dating. It's the fake dating trope handled just the way you want it, with tons of consent, tons of communication, tons of fun and romance, and it's just stinking fun. I really liked this book, and it was a perfect thing to read in between some of the heavier stuff that I have been and am still reading. So that is it for me. Those are the 10 books that I read in August. Let me know what you all picked for Women in Translation Month. I always have big intention for Women in Translation Month, but August is my back to school month. And so most of August for me is spent preparing for the start of the fall semester and starting the fall semester. I'm actually hoping to do a bit of a catch-up video in a couple of days for you all, so I can, vent a little bit about some of the reading I'm doing for class and how my fall semester is going. Fortunately, I'm teaching all online, so I haven't had to deal with some of the worst elements of in-person teaching. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Let me know what you read for Women in Translation Month, and if you've read any of these books or have any comments at all, please leave them down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.